Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bloody Legends with Jai That Aussie Metal Guy and Jim Taylor. Make sure you're a bloody legend and hit that like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the great content from these bloody legends.
I know. Well,
I know.
You are my friend.
G'day, how are you all going? It is time for another edition of the Bloody Legends with myself, Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, and my ever reliable co-host, JB Taylor, Jim Taylor, all the way from the US. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
I'm glad to be here, man. This is great.
This is great. It is good because we have Ron and Max from Hijack, rock band out of Milwaukee, who are due to release their latest album. Everything You Know Is Yesterday comes out 3rd of May through Blue Collar Records. Thank you for joining me, guys.
Thank you for having us. This is awesome.
Thank you, mate.
Gentlemen, absolutely.
Absolute bloody pleasure, guys. First off, man, for the uninitiated, can you tell me a little bit briefly about who Hijack are and how would you describe your sound and style to someone who's never heard of you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Hijack is a band that got created honestly because to make a very long story short, Ron and I were both in separate bands, and then my band at the time fell apart. The bass player from that band went to his band, and a little while later hit me up and was like, "Hey, can we do a one-off show where we play some of the songs from the old band, but I'll play with the new band too, and Ron will be the drummer." And I didn't know Ron at the time, but I said, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good." So we rehearsed a couple of times. It was good enough to play live. So we went out and we did the show. And then for whatever reason, it just worked especially well that night, to the point where we just started jamming and going off on tangents. I was throwing shapes at him, seeing if I could throw him off. And he just was with me the entire, we totally forgot about the bass player. He was just off in the corner like, all right. And at the end of that show, my uncle, who's one of my big music influences for lots of reasons, was like, "I don't know who that guy is, but you should continue to play with him." And so I kind of kept that in the back of Ron's mind. But he was still in the band, like I said. And then shortly after, I guess maybe a month or so later, that band fell apart. Also the bass player's fault.
Yep.
And he was actually going to give up playing music, and I said, "I understand, taking a break. I can respect that." And shortly afterwards, he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, so I just won a drum kit." And I was like, "How did you win a drum kit?" And he just did one of those. I don't know if they even do them anymore, but
the Hello Music things.
Right.
Like, share this post to win this, share that post to win that. And then apparently it's not bollocks, and I got a kit, so I was happy about it. And I was like, "Well, I have a kit. My other band broke up. Are you doing anything?"
And I said no. So we got together, and it was fun because I remember the first song we played, because at the time he had this 7-piece kind of inexpensive drum set, but it was massive.
It was a 9-piece kit.
9-piece.
It was a double bass wine red massive thing that I would never haul right now in my older years. I was a young dumb drummer, and then this 5-piece kit came about, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a lot less pieces than what I'm used to playing, but
and it was a night and day difference in sound, because he was used to having to hit so hard to make those inexpensive drums sound good.
Mm-hmm.
So we played a track. I don't know what we played. We played a song with that 9-piece set, and then I said, "Okay, let's take all this stuff down, set up the new drum set," which was a Gretsch Catalina Birch drum set.
Gretsch Catalina Birch. Black Diamond
great
series.
kit.
And
great
they don't make
kit. Yeah. No.
Well, so we set it up, and he sat back down. He made sure everything was good. I said, "Okay, let's do it again." And this time it was like boom, 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 and it was so loud. And I was like, there it is. That's the sound. I actually had to redevelop my guitar sound because he hit so hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how Hijack came to be, was from the fact of, I won a kit, a bass player broke up his project and my project sequentially, and we decided to form something, and then the bass player was like, "Well, guys, can I join?" And we both were like, "No, let's not try."
we're good.
But in terms of what we sound like, for anybody who doesn't know what we are, I always have just said that we're a rock band, because I think that just because we have been put into so many categories in Milwaukee. People have called us a punk band. They've called us a metal band. They've called us a heavy rock band.
They called us a blues band at one point in time too.
Because
So,
we
I
have
mean,
some tracks
okay.
that are
I'll
influenced
take
by
that.
blues.
Okay.
But that's why I just call us a rock band, because kind of like bands that we grew up with. So like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Rush and all of that, they weren't afraid to mix styles and see what they could do. And so that is something we've always taken influence from.
And that's what I hear in your styles. It's like you don't. This is no offense to anyone who's ever played with you, but you don't need anything else. The way you play guitar, the way you play drums, like so.
Thank you.
The way, Ronnie, the way you play reminds me of Mitch from my God, Jimi Hendrix, Mitch Mitchell's.
Mitch Mitchell?
The way
Oh, dude.
yeah. The way you hit, and then Max, the way you play guitar, I hear so many. It was actually going to lead to my first question, which we do for every. I mean, not to compare you to anybody, but like what who are your influences? Because Max, I hear Tony Iommi, I hear Hetfield, I hear everybody, right? And
I even
then
hear
the way
Nirvana and the grungier, the
that's what I
punk
was gonna
elements as well
say.
in it as well in some of these
Right.
tracks, dude. Like unreal, man.
My influences, I started playing guitar when I was 13 or 14, because at the time, I was not really much of a music person. Not for any one reason. We always had music in the house. It's just I never identified super heavily with any type of music.
Sure.
And then for my 13th birthday, my parents gave me a copy of Back in Black. And that was very left field. I had never heard of it. And so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, and I put it on and I started listening to it and I got into it, which was awesome because that ended up also being my gateway into record stores and then also bands that actually had more than like one album. Because in the 90s, most of the bands Nirvana had Nevermind was out, and
Right.
In Utero hadn't even come out yet when I was a kid, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I was used to bands only having like one or two albums, and AC/DC had whatever, 15, 20. So that was amazing.
Yeah, I think that's on the syllabus here when you're in kindergarten in Australia. They give you an AC/DC album and a fucking coloring in book.
That's awesome.
Really.
Well, this is especially fun for me because I didn't realize I'd be representing another Australian wrestler, Rhea Ripley, who's
Yes.
I'm a big fan of.
She's unreal, isn't she?
Nice.
Dude? She's holding it down. Massive
absolutely
metalhead
fantastic.
as well, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so at some point I just got into listening to the music so much that I got to the point where I was like, I can't just listen to this anymore. I need to know how to do this. Watching Angus play, and it was insane to me. And then AC/DC did end up being my gateway into Metallica, because my uncles were all about the age a little bit older than me, where they were like, listen to Metallica, listen to Black Sabbath, and then then I got into the Clash and the Sex Pistols, and then I got into Green Day, getting more current with the 90s. But then, like I said, my uncle was a huge influence for me because when I was like 15, he moved to my hometown because it was closer to his work. And with him came his 2,000 plus record collection. So I started doing this thing where I wouldn't even go home. I would go straight to his house from school, and he would give me an acoustic guitar that he had, and he had these records waiting for me. So then he played me things like Led Zeppelin and Cream and ZZ Top and Buffalo Springfield and Brownsville Station and all of these different bands. And he didn't have sheet music. He's like, I want you to play this song. So then I just started to learn how to play songs by ear. And it all kind of just snowballed from there. And
just gelled.
Now Ron, his influences are actually far different.
Way different upbringing. I mean, like for me, my dad's the one that introduced me to Jimi Hendrix. So you're absolutely right on the Mitchell and reference right there. And then that was like my introduction to rock from there. And then afterwards, I kind of became a nu metal kid. as I grew up. And I
Nice.
started off as a guitarist, actually.
That's almost exactly for me, Ronnie. I remember someone playing Jimi Hendrix, and that was kind of my input too, kind of, and it kind of snowballed from Jimmy as well.
Exactly. And it was Jimi Hendrix, and it was a lot of jazz. So it was a lot out of George Benson things. There was a lot out of different other guitarists that way first for me.
Wasn't there Motown
Yeah.
too? Like
Fire? Definitely. There was a huge Motown influence. There was an Earth, Wind, and Fire influence. There was the Commodores influence. So a lot of funk was also into my genes as well. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I was a guitarist for like maybe 4 years or something like that. And then I became a bass player for 2 years. And then the drummer of the band that I was in flaked. So I was like, I can hit things. I started going after Sam Loeffler from Chevelle. Actually, honestly, the whole entire Cream thing and the Who thing was kind of like little bit before I met you. Was when I was starting to get into Keith Moon and Ginger Baker and looking to those as my drumming influences as well.
Which was hilarious because not too far into our career, we got the privilege of playing with Kofi Baker. And since then,
Ginger Baker's son, obviously.
Ron has hosted him in his home at least once, if not twice, and he's taken drum lessons from him. It's exceptionally cool, some of the stuff we've gotten an opportunity to do.
Yeah, Ginger Baker actually legit slept in this room like a couple of times now when he comes and plays shows in Milwaukee.
Kofi Baker. Ginger was passed away.
Kofi Baker, my bad. Yes, Ron Baker. Kofi Baker actually slept in this very room, like that we're actually taking this interview in a couple of times when he was in Milwaukee. So
what was that like for you, Ronnie, going from guitar into drums and learning that new technique? Because you mentioned you play guitar, you went from bass to drums as well. How has that been?
I'm thinking like it was almost kind of like a more natural thing to me because I mean, music-wise, it's like okay, you learn notes, you learn different tones, you learn different and like frequencies of notes, and then afterwards, it's like, well, what about the beat behind it? What about the tempos behind it? And it's like, I never really thought about that. Like, I didn't have like that type of thing when it came to strumming patterns yet. So when it transferred to like, okay, how do I get my limbs to do it instead? I was like, oh, this actually makes sense. So, and I mean, like, I'm an engineer by trade, so yay for the math brain and all. They're like, okay, yeah, my left foot is on 16s, my right foot's on quarters, my left is on 8s, and then I can alternate my right in between my 8s and my 16s or my 32nds. And then that actually like made sense to me, and I was like, hey, math actually works here. I couldn't necessarily apply that to guitar or bass. So that's how I became a drummer.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
but it's interesting though that you have a guitarist mindset and a drummer, but I think that's what works for you guys because it's like, okay, here's this riff, and then like the you two building off of each other is just so unique. And I was streaming you guys today again just to listen. Dude, it's so brilliant, and it's so thick. Like the sound is so thick. And
that is this guy and his tone mastery for like
that's a
years that you've been developing this.
Be that as it may, it is still very much a collab because my tone would not have gotten to where it was if you weren't the drummer that you were.
Yeah,
we developed our sound. Well, but it's true because of how much racket you made. I like you said Mitch Mitchell, I said John Bonham. Like he reminded me of like listening to like Moby Dick.
Definitely him too.
John is just wailing on that drum solo. But regardless, you know, same premise. But yeah, I don't even remember what my guitar sounded like. It was the next evolution, and we've been working on it ever since.
You had like an old school like line 6 amp at one point. I want to say you had a Laney amp at one point.
Might have.
And
orange.
It was like
I had everything.
You had orange.
Orange.
You had
Mesa,
the lunchbox.
Marshall.
You had the Mesa. And there was like an array of amps that he went through, and then an array of different guitars. Of like, I remember that you kept on going about the Les Paul Jr. for like the longest time, and then you got it, and then you played with it, and then afterwards you got rid of it, and then it's like you missed it, and then you got another one, and then you got rid of that one.
'Cause you-
later.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
dude.
say from the videos, you play an SG, if I'm not mistaken. If we can nerd out for gear.
No, we can actually, if we want to nerd out
That's
for,
definitely his thing.
well, I was gonna say, if we want to nerd out for gear, should I go grab the guitar I have been using?
Yeah, go grab that.
Yeah, go
I'll
grab
come
it.
with
Do
you
it.
for the SG.
Do it.
Yeah, Jim actually, Jim's the muso. He's the muso brain. I'm the music lover brain. Jim's
No.
plays mandolin, keyboard, does soundtracks for some movies. Plays in an awesome band as well. Does a whole lot of great
No.
stuff as well. Yeah, no, he's an awesome musician as well. He's very underspoken.
No.
All
I
the musicians,
bless
and
it.
I'm so happy that you use the term muso because I also have an Aussie friend as well, and him and I would go back and forth about different music tales and everything. So shout out to Trip, who's been like kind of my contact back and forth on the other side of the pond, and well, pond, heck, other side of the world if you really think about
World.
it. African speaking here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
fairly large over here in Australia. People don't realize how sometimes how big this country is. I talk to some of my American friends, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you do realize Australia is almost the same
It's
size
kinda
as America,
huge.
pretty well the same size as America. It's just we're a lot more spaced out in our cities where we're not as built up on each other. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
the closest city is like 300 kilometers away from me.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
And at the same time,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I admire Australia, and at the same time, I'm like, I kind of want to go there, but everything wants to kill me.
No,
So I
no,
kinda
it's not that
don't
bad. I
wanna
had
go
this
there.
conversation the other day. Don't be scared, people. American friends, don't be scared. I'm not battling big spiders or snakes every time I'm going to
I
the
have
shop.
husband
It's
spiders the
okay.
size of my head.
If you go in our bush, it gets a little bit, you know what I mean? If you go in our bush, you've obviously got to watch out for the snakes and the shit that's going to bite you. But reasonably, it's fucking not that bad
That's what I
here.
keep telling Kendall. I'm like, I'm pretty confident there aren't going to be any things trying to murder you besides people in the big cities.
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
it's
Even
cool
then, it's
that murder stuff.
pretty safe for you. Actually, you got to watch out for the drop bears. Actually.
Oh, boy. There's actually a band here in Milwaukee called Drop Bear Collective. So when you said that
Oh, I
term, I'm
like
like, I
Hell
am
yeah.
sending that.
You,
I'm
you
so
know
sending
about
that.
it too. Hidden Intent, there's a thrash band from Australia. It's played all over the bloody place. They do this killer song. I got an American guesting on it. Drop Bears Are Real, which is fucking funny as hell.
That is funny.
Yeah. Cool. Let's
Okay.
get into the guitar.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say, let's see it. Let's see it here.
Well, so this is, sorry, Ron. So
No,
this is my
no,
number
it's
one
okay.
right now. So
Is that a Gretsch?
no, it's an Epiphone,
Epiphone.
actually.
Okay. Okay.
It is a 355. It's actually a signature model from a guy in Japan, who has been doing stuff with Gibson and Epiphone forever. And prior to, I guess, this last year, it was never available in the United States, and it was only available through Sweetwater. And I ended up not accidentally. It's not like I bought it
No,
on
no,
accident.
you had your sights on this one, dude.
But I inadvertently ended up buying it
Is that what you
last
tell your
year.
partner? I accidentally bought another guitar.
Yeah, whoops, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It was like
There's a band code
Eh.
completely about this, so yes.
But this has been my number one because actually one of the first good guitars I owned, and I still own, was a big body 335. And I learned on that guitar. So even when I started branching out and started learning songs from bands like Metallica and Judas Priest and whatever, that was the guitar I had when I was growing up. So that's what I learned to play on. And so finally, after all of this time, and as Ron said, I have had quite the journey over 10 years of trying out so many different things. I've even been fortunate enough to have an endorsement or two. But I always ended up coming back to Gibson
Right.
and Epiphone. That's where I started. And so I decided to get a 355, and this thing's just awesome.
No doubt.
She's
Actually, I
pretty.
will add this. Your 335 was legit the first guitar that you played when we got together.
That's also
It was
true.
all for that tone from your 335. It was a white one
I still have
that
it.
actually kind of formed our shape and our sound.
Because even the sound that you have, it's a cut between like almost rockabilly and metal. Okay. So if I'm not wrong on that,
I mean,
You are not wrong.
no, not wrong. No,
but
that's. I
because you
mean,
have to
that's fair.
fill in, you have to fill in that you're playing for one other guy. Like where traditionally bands are 4-piece.
Sure.
You
Right.
guys are doing it as a 2-piece, so you got to fill in that fatness of the sound. So and you're clearly doing that. So that explains so much.
There
So
were so many things in the equation from that, from like your skinny top, heavy
Oh my
bottom
God, so
string
many
to
things,
different
Right.
thousands of
SI
dollars spent.
strings and different things going back to it. And I was like, okay, you can have this type of a bass range. I'll handle the other bass range and tones and frequencies through my floor tom
right.
and my bass drum. So it's got to the point of like even different
Yeah,
bands that we played with is like, hey, can we backline a kit? And I'm like, kind of, yeah. But it's like I play their kits and they're tuned up higher. So it's like I can't hit the range that we need. So then afterwards, I was like, no, I have to bring my own kit, because only through that tuning are you going to get that bottom end sound or that bass sound that you actually hear. It's like,
right.
yeah, it sounds like 3 to 4 people. No, it's only 2 of us.
And we've gotten
Right.
that before. We've had people. There was one I remember distinctly. We were playing an outdoor show, and some older guy actually came up to us after the set, and he's like, "I'll tell you, I was over on the other side of wherever the hell we were playing, and I heard you guys, and I came over because I liked the sound. And when I saw it was just 2 of you on stage, I couldn't believe it because it sounds like a full band."
Perfect.
That was High Noon
That's
Saloon in
perfect,
Madison.
dude.
That was one that people like kind of came through the bar, because the bar was separate from the stage, and people were hearing us playing. They like peeked in, and it's like,
"What's going on?
Where's the rest of them?" It's like, no,
That's 2
it.
guys. Yeah.
It's only us.
Yeah, you
So
definitely
cool.
do create that big sound. It's almost coming up on 10 years. It's a spin you out a little bit looking back and going, wow, that first album, I think No Cover was around 2016 you dropped. What was that like beginning and making that first album for you guys?
Well, so actually,
oh my gosh, the learning journey itself on that one, homie.
true.
Wow.
But the process of getting the songs together was actually relatively easy. And I only say that because prior to the band I was in before I met Ron, when I was going to university and I was living alone in downtown Milwaukee, when I wasn't at school or I wasn't at work, at least when I first started out in school, I didn't really know anybody. So I spent a lot of time. I had a laptop, and as a graduation gift, my parents had gotten me a kind of intro Pro Tools setup. So I just started learning how to use the program and recording. So by the time that it came to Ron and I sitting down, I had a catalog of probably like 150 songs.
Wow.
And so I just gave all the songs to Ron and I said, just tell me which ones you like. And then he picked the ones he liked and I expressed the ones I like. We just kind of cherry picked.
The grandioso notebook of like the old school, like almost Scott Pilgrim like thing that you had written down of lyrics, different song ideas. There was like
I have several
straight up
notebooks.
notebook of this thing, of like almost a diary that you had going at the same time. It was an interesting read, and yeah, we just kind of picked from there to develop this.
Though that said, that there were a couple of tracks that were not songs I had written prior. So like Paper Airplane and Missing You from No Cover, those were songs we actually wrote together. So we were already starting to write together. So yeah, it was there. And then what ended up being the weirdest thing is we had a sort of manager at the time, and he reached out to one of his friends so that we could go and record at this studio. So we went and checked out this studio, and it was basically it was in like a band center. So there was a studio, but then there was also a bunch of rehearsal spaces. So the guy gave us a tour of the place, and we kind of picked a couple of spots to record, and we were like, great, we'll see you. And so a couple of weeks later, we came back, and he was like, yeah, so we're not going to be able to do it this way. We're going to have to do it this way. So what ended up happening is Ron got put in one room and I got put in another room.
And we couldn't see each other.
No CCTV, no nothing. So it was all just by headphones, no click track, no nothing.
So yeah, the No Cover album itself
is actually done live.
Was done live to tape, and we couldn't see each other. So we had no cues of each other when drops were, when stops were, or anything.
We just rehearsed it well enough.
We rehearsed it well enough to the point that, like, yeah, I know you're going to do this here, and he knows I'm going to do this here, and we just kept on rolling it that way.
That's brilliant.
Well, and every song you hear, that was the one take. So we may have taken 2 or 3 swings at a song, but when you hear whatever the final take is, that was one take.
That was the one take.
None of it stitched together or anything.
That was.
So we did the whole album.
That's so cool.
Hours. Yeah, I think we did the whole album in 8 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. But that's so cool. You had
right?
Well, I was gonna say, like, to have that kind of vibe, you know, between the two of you, and that not only that trust, it's like, oh, hey, if I extend this a little bit, or whatever we're gonna do, we're just gonna go. And that's brilliant, you know, and that's a testament to how cool you guys are.
Yeah, and how you're connecting as well as a two-piece. I suppose it has some positives. I suppose it's refreshing after being in bands with more than 2 people as well. I suppose the only time you're missing having the bigger people, I suppose, for you, Ronnie, is for loading when you're bringing in your drums.
In a sense, yeah. And I mean, like, I would even say that this is still like an ode to how we even got started, because in a sense, like, when we first met each other for that one gig, I was like, oh, okay, he's playing this shape, or he's doing this. And it was like almost like a pitcher and batter relationship in baseball of like, okay, if he throws me a knuckle, can I hit it? If he throws me a slider, can I hit it? And then the same thing just transferred over to the studio of like, oh, I know what he's going to do. I hear what he's doing in his picking style. I hear where his hand's going, and I hear where his voice is going. I know exactly where to hit.
Right.
Well, and
so cool.
And at least for us, I mean, or for me, I can't speak for Ron, but some of my favorite albums were made like that. Like Led Zeppelin 1, one of my favorite albums, made in the span of like days live. And then there was another one that particularly stood out to me that they were like, yeah, we did it in 12 hours. I can't remember right now, but I was always impressed by the bands that could do that.
Yeah.
They were just like, yeah, man, we knocked the album out. And that's one of the things that I came to kind of struggle with in modern music, because these days so many bands and players, you know, they do half a dozen passes and then somebody just cuts them up and puts together the perfect tape. And and I just never liked that. I was it's kind of like, I don't want to say cheating, but that's what it always felt like. I'm like, how come you can't just do it in one take? How come you can't just play the song? If you can do it at a show, why can't you do it in the studio? That's just me impressing that upon myself. So it was even when I was recording demos on my own, like I was talking about, I wasn't smart enough to know how to use Pro Tools to cut stuff together. So I was like, I got to do it in one take and it's got to sound good. So that's how I learned.
I'm with you. No, that's exactly it. But you're also capturing lightning in a bottle, and you're capturing like the spirit. It's capturing the vibe instead of like, well, I need the perfect take. If you're feeling the moment, just go with the moment, you know, and I feel that out of you guys.
Well,
and just playing.
Well, and as a result of that chemistry, we've been able to do. I mean, one of the things that I still remember to this day, we had a track that we kept messing with back and forth for the longest time, and every time we played with it, we got a little bit closer and a little bit closer, but we could never nail it. And then we actually got an opportunity to record at Sun Studios in Memphis.
Okay.
which actually we did end up recording that and releasing that. That is the EP Sunny Side Up.
Sunny Side Up. Yep.
Oh,
Folsom
yeah,
Prison
yeah,
Blues, Reason. That
Yep.
fucking bitch
And,
I work with,
so-
we all have one of them.
Yeah.
So the particular song Train Track Blues, like I think we had
That one.
three or
Yeah.
four songs, so we recorded the songs, and then the guys at the studio were like, well, do you have another one? We have time. And I was like, well, we have one, but we never get it figured out. But we just decided to go for it, and literally that song was finally born in Sun Studios. Because
Nice.
and it was literally just kind of, let's see what happens. We had no plan. We had a loose structure at best. We had no lyrics, and we put it together.
And much to my demise on that song, it's still requested today. And it was one of those interesting things because, yeah, it was a back and forth on it. And I will admit, from a drummer, especially if you're like a beginning drummer to like an intermediate drummer, that hi-hat riff for that, doing a train hi-hat riff for that long of a time, it is a grinder. Your forearms will feel it, your fingers will feel it, and you're just like, okay, just stay on pace, stay on the same beat.
For the love of God, stop!
Are we done yet?
Sometimes,
Oh my God, please switch, please switch.
How many times you extended that intro live, and I'm just like,
I know.
nope, I'm good.
And I'm watching you.
You're like, we're like 7 songs in, and I'm like, oh God, now I get the
and
play
I
this.
accidentally extended, and he's looking at me like, you mother.
Like, I love you. This hurts. I love you.
He's like, tonight I'm gonna put your hand in warm water at the hotel. I swear to God.
Oh, fuck.
That's awesome.
So jump forward. Latest album, Everything You Know Is Yesterday. It does come out 3rd of May. Me and Jim have actually had a listen to it. It's an absolute ripper of an album. But I want to ask about the first single off of the album, Milwaukee, which is really, really cool. Doing something different as well. Again, fucking amazing feature in that one as well. I really, really dug it, man.
Thank you.
Same.
That song was it constantly evolved until it was recorded.
Yep.
So it was a song that Ron had we were at the old house that he was in,
north side of Milwaukee. So like, if you are familiar with the, I don't know, different tales of like the north side of Milwaukee, there was even a documentary that was done about Milwaukee like back in the day called like Murder City and everything else like that, mainly because there's a lot of crimes, a lot of different things that happen there, and a lot of misconceptions that actually happen with the culture there.
Right.
And from that, technically Milwaukee was actually born even from the Sherman riots or Sherman Park riots. From that, that's how we like kind of got the energy from, or for that song in a sense.
Because there was a lot of anger at that time, especially on the north side, and it was something that was actually it was really uncomfortable because I didn't live on the north side, but Ron did, and his wife, and they not that it should ever matter, and I was blown away that it did, but they are an interracial couple technically.
We're mixed.
So, but she's
Nintendo, I'm Sony. I mean, like, it was a weird dynamic to begin with, but we worked through that all together.
But he was catching heat something fierce during that time. Like at one
that's
point,
bullshit. That in 2024 that we have such small-minded
this wasn't
fucking
2024.
people.
When was this?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Like any time in the
2018,
last how many years, any time at
Well,
all. It's just.
but it was
if
even
you're a cunt. That's what it is. If you're like that, you're a cunt. As simple as.
Right. Well, and it was.
You're absolutely right, sir.
Well, and there was even a day where he called me and he said, "Hey, man, I can't practice today." And I said, is everything good? Anything I need to worry about? And he got fucking jumped like 2 blocks from his house and got the shit kicked out of him by some kids.
3.
Because they shot him.
It was a 1v3, and I was kind of like wounded / injured in it and all. And oddly enough, we practiced it, and that was also still during the recording of Turn It to 10.
Right.
So like, I still had a shiner, and still like kind of batted it up, bruised up while recording Turn It to 10.
Yeah,
but still actually
was the second studio album, wasn't it? After Analog Life. Yep.
Well,
exactly.
So that's really where Milwaukee stemmed from, was all of that anger that was happening, and I think it was especially spearheaded by what he's talking about with Sherman Park, because there was a bunch of riots, a gas station, like the whole gas station got blown up.
Yeah,
It
was nuts.
It was absolutely, like, there were some periods of time where my wife and I were literally like begging Ron and Chris to come and stay with us, because at least then we would know that they were safe.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
It was a very bleak time.
It was a dark time, I will admit.
But it continued to evolve to the extent that when we were recording it for Everything You Know Is Yesterday, I don't remember which one of us it was. It was probably Ron. We came up with the idea of layering drums and really turning it into like an urban sound. So almost as if all of Milwaukee is standing behind us and everyone's got a drum that they're banging on to represent their voice, I guess. And that's where it evolved from. And fortunately, we know some great people. So we had so many different resources for percussion. I was even able to secure an empty keg from a local brewery that we were able to just bang on and get some cool
AKA Slipknot there.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. It is.
That would be
where
about the only instrument I could play, dude.
Yeah, come on. We'll go over. You don't even have to come to us. We'll go over there. I'd love to. Let's do it.
I'm game for this too.
Yeah, let's do a tour of Australia. I'm down.
Let's see.
The other beauty of Milwaukee itself is that, from the anger, we also decided to go like with a lot of togetherness. So there's actually a couple more Milwaukee guest drummers on there, like djembe Josh. If you listen to the track, there's a djembe in the back of it. Josh Wilkie and myself, we worked together on a couple other music projects together. So we got him on the track. Eric Morrissey, he's a machine gun of a drummer. So that kind of kaleidoscope snare that you hear in the background, that's actually him instead of me. And of course, the gang vocals, we got like a whole bunch of other Milwaukee personnel for that. The rap verse is done by a Milwaukee rapper named Shlee Berry. So it was just like an all-encompassing gumbo of a song that we decided to like go together, like all of us together. So it's not just us, it's just everybody.
Well, and the only reason we were able to get Shlee to do the guest vocal is because at the time I was fortunate enough to have her as a coworker.
Oh,
because
nice.
at the time, she was actually gaining quite a bit of prominence in the Milwaukee area, and so just kind of casually one day I said, "Hey, would you ever have any interest in being on a rock song?" And she was like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to do that." So then I think I sent her the demo without lyrics, and she was like, "Yeah, I really like that. That's good." And so we weren't sure what to do with it, and then eventually I was like, "How would you feel about just writing the second verse, and that's yours?" And she was like, "Okay." So she came up with a couple of ideas, and she came down to the studio, and we hashed them out, and that was what we got.
It was basically
That's
like
so
Milwaukee,
cool, dude.
one story of like being of that whole entire dark turmoil and everything else like that, but still coming out of that dark turmoil together to actually like make things a lot better.
One of my favorite lyrics from that song was Shlee's, where she says, "I know there's room for improvement, but when we come together, we're a force, we're a movement."
Yep.
Because
damn straight.
Yep. And
I like that.
And and like I said, that was all written by her. I give her absolute credit for the second verse. I had no hand in it. But it worked. So that was it. And since then, she moved away for a while. She came back. We're trying to kind of cajole her out of a break that she's presently in, because I would love to have her come and sing these songs with us. But we're still working on making headway.
It was a really, really cool single to go with, an amazing feature, and it showed another kind of dimension as you guys, because as me and Jim mentioned, you have all these different sounds and influences in there, and that song kind of showed another avenue for you guys as well, and it was just a really, really cool track to go with for the first off. And Shlee, amazing feature on that track as well, really a good standout on the album. Tell us about the second single and the latest one, Hello Man.
So that one is one of my Milwaukee apartment tracks. So while I don't know. I might get some heat for this, and I don't really care.
This should be interesting.
But when I wrote that song, and it did change a little bit over the years until it became what it became. But when I first wrote that song, like I said, I was a big fan of Epiphone, and I ran into a guy that sold me an Epiphone Strat copy. And I wish I still had it because it's one of those guitars you don't see anywhere.
I can't even remember this guitar. I don't even know if I've seen this.
It was silver. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it was a Strat copy, but it was made by Epiphone, which was cool. And when I got it and I plugged it in and I started playing with it, I basically said to myself, because my dad at the time was way into John Mayer, because like I think Room for Squares and hello.
Lala.
Had to say the hi and all.
Was
Come
it
back.
Lila?
Come back. Hello.
She's gone.
Actually, the weird thing is, like, the single is actually "Hello." So
Right.
that's a funny thing about.
That's cool.
But essentially,
That's
it was
cool.
one of
That's
those things
cool.
where my dad just kept telling me, oh, John Mayer's so good. John Mayer, because I think John Mayer Trio had just come out or whatever. And so
Yeah.
just to kind of just to appease that itch for my dad, because he was always curious what I was going to come up with, I was like, okay, let's see if I can do my best John Mayer. And that is what came out. And I know it doesn't even sound like it, but that was my attempt at being John Mayer.
It was your interpretation of John Mayer.
Right. Right.
Cool.
Do you want me
No,
to go
that's
downstairs and get my continuum tab book that I still actually have?
I don't.
I still have that thing. I learned John Mayer songs myself.
I can't listen to the album Continuum anymore. Because when that album came out, my dad played it nonstop for like a month. Like literally, it was in constant rotation
funny.
in our house.
My mom was the same way.
I probably know it subliminally, and it's gross.
Dude, I still have the actual temperature notebook or sheet music for that same album.
No disrespect to John Mayer. John Mayer is a great guitar player in his own right, but it's kind of like listening to Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven. Like certain songs, even if it's a great band, I'm like, okay, I can't listen to this for the billionth time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Oasis is like that for me. That fucking Wonderwall track and a couple.
Yes!
I can't fucking handle it, dude.
All I know is the little bit where he says, "You're my Wonderwall."
Oh no, it just drives me crazy. I can't fucking understand it, but I know tracks like that as well, dude.
Funny.
Well, that's okay. The brothers can't even get along anymore anyway.
Yeah, they probably hate the fucking track. Guys, do you have a standout off of the album, one that's your favorite today? I know it's going to change tomorrow and week to week depending on, but do you have a favorite off of the latest album and why?
I'm wondering if we can agree on this. I almost want to be like, okay, on 3, we're just going to say a name off of it and see if we agree.
Go ahead, and whatever you say, you got to explain it. If we're not lined up, you got to go first.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Milwaukee.
Jesus Christ!
All right.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so I said punk rock queen of the BBC.
Thank you. I was going to ask before I asked that question, dude. Cool track.
So, fun fact, that will be our third and final single for the new album. That comes out, I'm sorry, let me look at my calendar here. That comes out, I think, next Tuesday, the 30th.
Yep. April 30th, punk rock queen of the BBC.
So
that's your favorite then, eh?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that track, man, because it's a fucking cool track. I interviewed Frank Turner recently, and he done a track about meeting a girl in a record store. Then I listened to this one this week, and I'm like, dude, for some reason, it's coming up, man.
Yeah.
So that track, that was again one of my apartment tracks. So that was one of those. At the time, I was in college and I was going to school for journalism and advertising. So I was working for
you got a BA in English.
That's true. And now I'm headed back to school to be a mortician. So there's that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Talk about a career change, right?
Well, that's because I've been working for Apple for 11 years.
There's that.
Okay.
He's already dead inside. It works.
I'm very much dead inside. But
that's terrible.
So with Punk Rock Queen of the BBC, I was actually working for a free publication, but it is very well known in Milwaukee, called the Shepherd Express.
Okay.
It's a free publication. It's distributed everywhere, but it's like one of those. It's kind of like how Melody Maker and things like that used to exist, and LA used to have their music magazine where musicians would look for other musicians, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's very much the same kind of thing. So I was working for them at the time, and they had me going on various assignments, and they had me go on this brewery tour. So I took my cousin because they allowed me to take one person, and so we went on this tour, and we had a good time. And there was one particular beer I liked, which was this brewery's interpretation of Guinness, and it was close enough, and it was good. So at the end of the tour, they gave us these tokens that could be used at specific bars around Milwaukee. And so I was like, okay, which bar has this particular beer? It was called Snake
Yeah.
Charmer. And
Oh.
they said it was at a bar which no longer exists, I'm afraid, called the BBC, which was on North Avenue here in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, deal. And so we drove up. It wasn't far. We drove whatever the 5 minutes to the BBC, and we had lunch, and we were playing pool, and drinking this beer. And there was a girl behind the counter that I don't even know her name. If you put her in a row of people and asked me to point her out, I couldn't do it.
Hence the lyrics. I gotta know her name. I gotta know her name.
But she had like the
cool.
hair, the multi-hair color and all of that. And I mean,
hair with magenta streaks.
and that would have been 2012. So at the time, I guess that was still considered sort of weird for Milwaukee. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that was it. I was just totally like, as we were playing pool, I was like to my cousin, I was like, I wonder who she is. And he's like, I don't know. And we by the end of it, we were so drunk it didn't matter, and we just left.
And we just called her the punk rock BBC.
But
I think
that's where the title
at
came
times
from.
we've all had those conversations as well. It kind of comes back to Hello a little bit as well, where you kind of have these conversations in your head, like, what would it be like if I were to go over and talk to this person? And, you know, you have
Right.
this story in your head already before you do it, and then you just don't do it anyway. You just kind of sit back and you go, okay, and I'm not doing it at all.
Which is and that whole storyline came from the fact, those are my favorite parts of like those movies like American Pie and whatever, scary movie from the early 2000s, which I grew up on, where you would have this scenario play out where you were like, yeah, man, they're making it. And then all of a sudden it would snap back to reality and they hadn't done anything. And I was like,
Right.
yep, that's what this feels like.
Yeah, even going with like Hello, I admit when you brought that song to me, I thought it was like with your current partner, Kendall, because even though that she's Milwaukee, she grew up in LA.
That's
so
true.
like one of the lyrics in that song is, I saw her walking down the streets of LA, I want to say hello. So I almost want to be like, well, wasn't that like your first time meeting Kendall then?
No.
Which I know was not correct, because now that you like wrote that into your apartment prior to Kendall.
It was more of a foreshadowing, apparently.
Definitely.
Something I could not have possibly known when I was writing that song in 2011 or whenever I wrote it. But yeah,
right.
He's absolutely right. My wife, who we've been together now for a little over 10 years, not married, but we've been together for 10 years. We've been married for 8.
Okay. I was about to say, man, I'm getting old.
She is from West Los Angeles. That's absolutely correct. It was just kind of that weird luck of the world.
And it worked.
Right.
You had this one knack of like, I don't know, like nearly manifesting things through these songs, which are story songs in a sense, but you wrote them like all in your apartment, but they actually like work later on in life.
So what I'm doing.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I am the
each of your songs tells a story.
Right.
You know,
well, but that all comes from, that honestly comes from my dad, because my dad would play songs like blues songs like Robert Johnson and all that. And he would say, these songs still matter almost 100 years later because they're telling a story.
Right.
Songs that
exactly.
tell a story are the ones that stick around. I mean, even songs that are sort of silly, like Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. People still listen to that because it's a story. or George Thorogood's one bourbon, one scotch, one beer. I mean,
Correct.
for most people, that song would be absolutely ridiculous. But there's a story,
Right.
so you get
There's a story
into the
behind
story. Right.
That's lyrically at that. I heard that in you guys. And like, yeah, you literally the stuff you've been listening to and talking about and then writing in the way you write is you know, I was sitting here thinking of like, man, I bet they listen to Gordon Lightfoot and
Well, at least me.
At least him.
yeah. And then like different but different classic rock, but then taking your own approach, like, you know, how do we make that? Sometimes we're aggressive, sometimes we pull back a little bit. You guys have different sounds of the way you guys play, and that's what makes Hijack distinctive, I think, in my opinion. But I think it's utterly brilliant what you guys are doing. And
Thank you.
I think it's great. And the amount of power you guys have as a two-piece, it's like you guys understand each other. It's like, well, we don't need to talk to anybody else, you know. Just you know, you talk to the engineer and be like, all right, make it sound good, you know.
Well,
Go,
yeah.
you know.
And we've had, I couldn't even tell you over the years, if we had a dollar for every time somebody said, "Wow, you guys sound great, but you need a bass player,"
Oh, bro.
we wouldn't have to
We would have
No.
paid for the album already.
No, you don't. You don't.
definitely
No,
don't.
you don't.
No, Ronnie
But
does
at
an
the-
amazing
definitely
job
don't.
of carrying that heartbeat of Hijack for sure. You don't. I didn't once listen to your music and go, "Hey, you need a bass player in here." That's for sure as well. Like it really
Yeah,
did have
seconded.
this big sound to it, and it didn't feel like anything was lacking at all to your sound, guys.
Well,
Correct.
we sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah, that
it's
raises a tear right here, man. Thank you.
because actually on the latest album, Turn It to 10, we did incorporate some actual like bass guitar lines. It was done by me, so it's not like we had a
An
bass
extra.
player come in, but that was at the behest of the label, and so they had specific
Actually, everything you know is yesterday.
that's what I meant. What did I say?
You said turn it to 10.
I'm so sorry, that's
Yeah.
not what I meant.
It's all good.
We knew what you meant.
We know what you meant.
We knew what
We
you
know
meant.
what you meant.
No,
We know
dude,
what you meant.
keep doing what you're doing because it's a really, really great sound. This album was an absolute ripper. One more track I am going to ask about is the Pride track, man. Killer track, dude.
Yes! Yes!
Oh my god!
Yes!
That song will haunt me forever.
Good.
And
I'm glad I asked about
I
it.
still love that track. I know that you don't like it, but I still love it.
There's a reason I asked then.
It's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's hard to play and
Yep.
sing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a challenging one.
Believe it or not, that track was also a track that I recorded in my home studio in Milwaukee. What happened is that when I was still going through college, originally I went to school for music, but it became one of those things where I did an audition to get into the music program. I didn't pass.
Nerd. Had to.
That's fine. I didn't pass, and then one of the guys suggested that I take lessons from him. If he's still a professor at UWM, his name is Pete Billman. So I did these lessons with him at $50 a pop, mind you, which was very expensive for 2008.
Yeah, dude. I didn't even pay that much for mine.
So I had to actually come down to Milwaukee every time to do them too. So then finally we were doing a number of these lessons, and he was trying to help me prepare for a follow-up audition. And at the very end of the last rehearsal, he said, "So what do you want to do instead?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not passing your audition. What do you want to do?"
Oh my
instead?"
god. Wow.
And I
Wow.
was like, I don't know what I want to do. I've been doing this forever.
Damn.
He's like,
Right.
"Yeah, okay." And that was the end of that. And I went home and I worked really hard. And when I came back for the audition, I actually nailed it. And he was on the board. So I think he was just upset that I had proved him wrong.
But you proved him wrong, man. He's like, fuck this gun.
Right. So that the semester and change that I had at UWM was miserable, and I eventually moved out of it. But I continued to do music classes, and that is where I met, hands down, probably one of the greatest men I have ever met in my life outside of my own father and grandfather.
And uncle.
And his name was Martin Jack Rosenblum. Unfortunately, he has passed away. He was a professor at UWM for rock and roll and music. And when I say this man was truly rock and roll, I mean it. This man met and hung out with Bob Dylan. He rode with the Hells Angels. He hung out and helped influence Hunter S. Thompson.
Yep.
Like, this man was
Nice.
the real G.
Just legendary.
He's a rebel.
But he was more of a behind the scenes. So at one point or another, he sold me a double neck guitar that he had.
Ah, yeah. I remember this guitar.
And so that is where I ended up recording. That is the guitar I used to record Pride originally, because I was playing around with a bunch of effects at the time. And that is where that song originated. I wish I still had that guitar. Unfortunately, 2019 and the poverty that came with it took that away from me. But it is something I have never forgotten. That guitar and that song would not have been developed without each other.
Could have been like, I remember I interviewed Al Anderson from Bob Marley and the Wailers, and he said he went to music college in New York at the time, but he just kind of attended. He didn't even like enroll. He just kind of went for like a couple of months before they realized he wasn't even a student at the school as well. Really, really cool dude. Cool, guys. Where's the best place people can kind of get along and support Hijack?
We are fortunately everywhere, and our tagline is the same. The only place we aren't presently on is TikTok, but all of our...
Working on it. Give me a couple...
Figuring it out.
Give me a couple
Get
seconds.
on there with those TikToks, isn't it?
Oh, gosh. No, I'm not doing a coordinated dance. I'm coordinated behind a drum set. I'm not coordinated to dance.
Neither am
But
I.
One thing at a time.
But for all of our social media, Facebook and Instagram, everything else, it's all the same. It's Hijack MKE, all one word. So HIJACK MKE. And for our main website, it's just www.hijackmke.com. We kept it simple and we tried to keep it consistent.
Yeah, nice.
Jack Milwaukee. I love it.
Exactly. Did you want to chuck in anything else in, Jim? Are you good, my friend?
I'm good, bro. I'm
Okay,
good, my
cool.
friend.
Okay, guys. So the album from Hijack does come out 3rd of May. It is called Everything You Know Is Yesterday. It is coming out through Blue Collar Records. Ronnie, Max, do you have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, my friends?
I just want to say thank you to all the fans that have continued to hang out with us for these past 10 years, especially with the pandemic. We kind of went into a hibernation, and the fact that everyone is coming back and things seem to be better than ever, at least based on our website presence and etc. Thank you. Because if that were not the case, we may not have even continued much further than putting out this album. So it means the absolute world to us. Please keep it coming, because if I don't have to go back to school, I'm open to that idea.
I'll actually double up along with them. Thank you guys for, holy cow, 10 years, man. I mean, like, none of us are getting any younger or anything like that. And through everything from like basement punk shows to like actual like national stages to tours to how many different and like venues we've been in or recording studios that we've been in. And you guys have been in with us through the ride and all. And yay to you new fans who are just now coming to know us and all.
More people
and
from
also
Australia.
Thank you to the old fans who have been up with us since like no cover all the way through of supporting this whole entire musical experiment.
This has been
has been successful.
It's been a hell of a thing.
It's been from the heart. So thank you guys.
Please, and absolutely more fans from Australia, because if we can make a reason to go, I've been thinking about it. I don't even know if this band still exists, but there was a band that I kind of ended up conversing with from Australia called the Beautiful Monument.
They're still around.
All right.
All right.
Well,
I know them.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, so
There you go.
It would be absolutely amazing to actually come there because my number one guitar hero has and always will be Angus Young.
Damn
As
straight.
long as there's no huntsman spiders when
No
I
spiders.
wake up,
No big spiders.
I'm okay with this. Okay.
I'll lend you a flamethrower. We've got one in the cupboard.
Wait. Deal. Wait. Let me a flamethrower. Hang on here.
It'll be fun. It'll be fine. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. It's gonna be fun.
I get a flamethrower. Do I need the flamethrower? That's the other question.
It's gonna be totally fine.
Get a good can of beer and a compliment. It's like, welcome to
I'm
Australia.
good with a good can of
Here's your
beer.
good can of beer. Here's your complimentary flamethrower.
And Foster's isn't a good can of beer, people. So just
I didn't ever believe it was.
we send all that to
you guys
fucking
have
the English. The English like the Fosters. Anybody, anyway, everybody grab some Hijack, chuck it in the stereo, crank it up really bloody loud. The neighbor's gonna want to hear it too. Cheers, guys. Have an awesome evening.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
Cheers.
mate.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai, that Aussie metal guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.